It's time for Media Meltdowns, and this time it's former President Barack Obama leaving leftist media hosts in a spin. Barack Obama delivered a blunt message to Democrats last week, telling them to toughen up.
He told donors this over the weekend, quote, "I think it's going to require a little bit less navel-gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions," Obama said, according to excerpts of his remarks exclusively obtained by CNN. And it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up.
Sounded like that was pretty painful for the CNN reporter to get through that. So Barack Obama lectures the Democrats, telling them to toughen up. Cue the meltdown from The View's Whoopi Goldberg.
Democrats laying back. This has been about y'all. This has been about y'all because their messaging was always the same. Democrats have been angry at what this man tried to do the last time. They've been angry this time. So with much due respect to you both, I believe you are pointing the finger at the wrong person when you say Democrats.
Are you delineating between voters and elected officials?
Yes, I am.
Whoopi taking his message a little personally.
I agree. Voters are very impassioned.
Voters, and when you say Democrats, he's talking to us saying our messaging is bad. And I'm saying, no, our messaging has not been bad because people have been out.
She's not happy, but this reminds me of when Obama lectured men, accusing them of being sexist for not wanting to vote for Kamala Harris.
Coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly now, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that. That's not acceptable. This shouldn't even be a question.
For some reason, this just keeps backfiring for Barack Obama, but The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon has run with Obama's lecture, doing a skit on the quality list of Democrats that could potentially step up.
And besides, look, I'm not sure America's ready for a president named Gavin. Gavin.
All right, well,
Gavin.
Well, then who do you think is tough enough to save the Democrats?
Well, at this point, you got to go with the popular vote. So right now, the front runners are Huda from Love Island, or Labubu doll.
All right, that's enough. President Obama, everybody. That's.
Joining us now from New Jersey is broadcaster and commentator Carmine Sabia. Carmine, thank you so much for joining us. Barack Obama has lectured the Democrats and it didn't work. What did you make of Whoopi Goldberg's tantrum?
Well, it was a tantrum, wasn't it? I'm not surprised by this. I was surprised to see her take sides against President Obama. For one of the first times since I followed President Obama, he was actually spot on with what he's saying, which is you can't have a party. You can't have victory in elections if your only argument is, hey, we're not Trump, we're angry at Trump, and let's go protest and riot and do all these things. And then Whoopi Goldberg's argument to that was, well, we're doing our job. We're out there protesting. And how dare you? This is y'all's fault. This is y'all's fault, meaning him and Mark Cuban. And I don't see how it's their fault. I think if they followed Obama's advice, they might have had a chance. And, it was an absolute meltdown on the air. But, listen, you could fit what Whoopi Goldberg knows about politics in a thimble and have room. This is a woman who thought that Jill Biden should be the Surgeon General because she's a great doctor. She's a doctor of education. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't know much of anything, but she knows how to be loud, and she nailed that. And you know what? Listen, let the Democrats eat their own. I think it's lovely.
And businessman and TV personality Mark Cuban went on Pod Saves America. He had this message for the Democrats.
It's just Trump sucks. That's the underlying, thought of everything the Democrats do. Trump sucks. Trump says, the sky is blue. Trump sucks. You can't, that's not the way to win. It's just not, because it's not about Trump. It's about the people of the United States of America and what's good for them. And how do you get them to a place where they're in a better position and it's less stressful for them?
A bit of common sense. Instead of being so obsessed with Donald Trump, they could actually come up with positive policies to help America, yet they're pouring their energy into fighting ICE, keeping men in women's sports. But speaking of Democrats, let's talk about Gavin Newsom, California's governor. He's on a media blitz at the moment, and he had a disastrous appearance on the Sean Ryan show. He was unable to answer when he was asked if he believed that 8 years old was just too young to transition.
What about for your values? I mean, is 8 years old too young?
Yeah, I mean, look, I now that I have a 9-year-old, just became 9. Come on, man, I get it. So those are legit. You know, it's interesting. Just the issue of age. I haven't. It's interesting. As someone that's been so focused on equality, broadly, LGBT rights, particularly gay marriage. Mm-hmm. The trans issue for me is also novel. It's over the last few years. I'm trying to understand as much as anyone else. Whole pronoun thing, trying to understand all of that. Well, you know, that was like the hell. I mean, all that stuff. I get it.
Carmine, it's so awkward to watch.
I think you're in a bad situation going into 2028 if you want to be the Democrat nominee for president and you can't say unequivocally 8-year-olds should not have gender transition. You know, Gabrielle, when I was 8, I watched 101 Dalmatians. My niece and I, we went to the movies. We watched 101 Dalmatians. We came home. We were convinced we were Dalmatians. And, you know, my mom didn't get us tails and fur coats. So I think, you know, at 8 years old, you're convinced of a lot of things. And I think it's psychotic. It's actually psychotic. And listen, I pray he stays on this road. Please, Democrats, please stay on Mandami, stay on this Gavin Newsom, stay on these 80-20 issues that nobody agrees with you on. We'll keep the White House forever. They've apparently learned nothing at all. And I'm all for it.
Let's talk about Mamdani. He's the front runner for New York City mayor. Socialists around Mamdani, and he's made it clear he's not a fan of capitalism. He's refused to recognise Israel's right to exist. He's come under fire for his campaign policy document that calls for shifting the city's tax burden onto richer and whiter neighbourhoods. And now in Minneapolis, the Democrats are running Omar Fattah for mayor, and he wants rent freezes, he wants to defund the police, and he wants to, of course, Trump-proof the city. But he also wants to bridge the gap between Minneapolis and Somalia. Take a look at this.
We should make dua for him and pray for him. I understand that our Somali communities are all connected to each other here in Minnesota and back home, and I ask for your support. There's always been a link between our community here as well as back home, and I'm running to bridge that gap and unite all of us and represent all of us, because when we succeed here, we succeed everywhere. And I'm hoping to do that just like Abdrazak, inshallah.
Looking at Mamdani and Omar Fattah, they are radical far left. You know, Mamdani has been in DC today, meeting with Democratic lawmakers to talk about the lessons from his surprise win out there with AOC. But this is really putting the spotlight on the future direction of the Democrat Party, don't you think?
Oh, boy, yes. And I love it. I love it. I think this is fantastic. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Democrats are doing our work for us. No matter what mistakes the Republicans make, and we've made some mistakes since January 20th, don't get me wrong. But man, let's have this. Let's finally, once and for all, have this out in 2028. In 2028, communism versus capitalism. Because calling these people Democrats, socialists, or socialists, it actually undermines, it lessens, it softens what they actually are. What they actually are is communists. When you're talking about seizing private property in the form of rental units, apartment buildings, when you're talking about government-run grocery stores, you are talking about communism. And it's baby steps. Communism always comes to you in baby steps. The first step is class warfare. Well, the Democrats have protected that. If you're a successful person, you're evil. If you're a poor person, then you're righteous. And so they've convinced people who are struggling, the middle class and whatever, that people who have are the reason they don't have. And once you can convince them of that, then communism starts to look more attractive. However, I think these ideas are so radical, I believe firmly in my heart, America will reject them. That doesn't mean that places like Minneapolis won't accept them, places like New York City won't accept them. I think, and this is going to shock people, as much as I don't want Mandami to win, I believe that him winning in New York City would be the best thing that could happen for capitalism, because it's the biggest, most popular city in the world. It is the beacon of capitalism in the globe. You got Wall Street, you got Fifth Avenue, you got all the places. So much commerce goes on there. If you can show the failure of capitalism in New York City, you might be able to drive a stake through the heart of this movement. Because if you don't, this is taking over the Democrat Party. There's going to be a time, believe it or not, I tell my Republican friends this all the time. There's going to be a time where you guys sit there and say, "Oh man, I wish we had Nancy Pelosi back." That's how bad these people are.
Well, there you go. That says something, doesn't it? I want to talk to you about what's happening in Spain, because the streets of Spain have turned into chaos. Locals are clashing with migrant gang members. Let's just take a look at what's unfolded. Now, this all kicked off after an elderly man was randomly and brutally beaten up by 3 members of an African gang on Saturday, and this sparked outrage in the community. Now we're seeing violent clashes play out between migrant gangs and locals. Some of the vision is confronting, including vision of protesters wearing masks and shooting fireworks in the streets. Multiple people have been arrested after many nights of violence now. Can I get your reaction to what's been unfolding here?
Sadly, not surprised. A 68-year-old man gets attacked by a gang of migrants, and the police are cracking down. They're cracking down, but they're cracking down on the people who are tired, who are fed up with their country being invaded. I feel for Europe, and I have a lot of fear for Europe, because I believe Europe has laid down. They have laid down without a fight. I've never seen in the history, I've studied history, I've never heard of a continent being taken over by inviting the invaders in. Could you imagine they invited the Huns in back in the ancient times? Just come in, guys. Come in, Attila. It's okay. What's happening here, you can't, and look, politically correct or not, you cannot take people from the third world, stick them in the first world countries and say, okay, go ahead. There's no assimilation. There's nothing. And you have these random acts of violence, and then the police crack down on the people who are fed up. Look, I'm pro-immigration. I'm an American. My family are immigrants. I believe in immigration legally and through assimilation. And that's not what's happening here. What we have is just a flood of people who are fundamentally changing what it means to be European. European, unlike the United States was built on multiculturalism. Europe wasn't built that way. Europe had people who are specifically homogenous to these regions. They have the same culture. They have the same, things that they do, the same religious beliefs. And you just shoved millions of people in. And not only did you shove them in without any assimilation, but you're giving them preferential treatment. It's not just Spain, it's all across Europe. What's happening in Spain is just an example of what's been happening in Europe. The fact that they're arresting people on what they want to call the far right, and I like to call the common sense, but they call it the far right because that sounds dangerous. They're arresting those people who are finally saying, look, we're fed up. We're not racists. We're not haters, but we want safety in our own country. It's absolutely absurd. It's absurd what's happening there.
Well, illegal migration to Spain has increased by 82% in the last 3 years. And it's interesting to note how this is playing out in the media. It's not getting all that much attention. And the articles that I have been seeing, look at the New York Times, and it's police arrest far-right leader after anti-immigration riots in the Spanish town. I mean, what's your assessment of the media's role in this?
The media is the biggest purveyors of, I can't say that word on TV, but nonsense in the whole Western Hemisphere and in the world. The media likes to cultivate the narrative. If you control the narrative, you control the message. And if you control the message, you control the people. So you say far right, these anti-immigrant protesters have been arrested, and then they're far right. And they're, again, far right, that harkens back to World War II and Germany and things like that. And that gets people scared. That's not what these people are. These are people that want to protect their country. They want to protect. Spain has a beautiful and rich history. It is a beautiful country. It is. My nephew was just in Italy, and he's telling me, he's like, it's nothing like. I mean, he's been going there for decades. He's like, it's. You could see the change. It's not the Italy we know, and it's the same thing happening in Spain. And it's such a culture shock, and it's happening so fast that it's just dangerous. And the media plays the biggest role in this, because the media wants you to feel guilty for being somebody who wants to protect your country. And so when the New York Times puts out an article like that, that's not just about Spain. Believe me, it's also about America. It's also about saying it's the bad guys who don't want these immigrants. And by the way, they always say immigrants. They never say illegal immigrants. They mix them. The immigrants and illegal immigrants to them are the same thing. But to us on the right, it's not the same thing. We welcome legal immigrants. And no, so the media is playing a horrible role in this, but I will say they're playing the role that they've been playing for years. This is what the media does. So to that end, they're being very successful because they're doing what it is they do.
Broadcaster and commentator Carmine Saber, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Really great to get your thoughts. Appreciate it.